All right, folks, welcome back to the series. And today we're going to undertake beginning to add products as a vendor into the application. And we're going to work with the Material app today. So make sure you have an Android emulator or device running. And what we're going to do is we're going to, in our products page, we are going to add a fab icon down at the bottom so that you can click that and then be brought to a sliver page that can scroll up and down and collapse the header bar as needed with a form on it that allows you to add the product. We're going to scaffold this. Most of this will come together real quick. We've got a text field already in our app that conforms to our styles and we can add an icon to. And so we'll use that for product name and unit price. The only thing we don't have here is a drop down. And so that's what we're going to spend most of this video building is a drop down that looks exactly like it belongs in our form. It's not hooked up to the back end yet. So when you click on it, nothing happens, but we'll have the styles look exactly like the text field. And this is the material version. You get a nice little material box. When we go to do this on iOS, you'll get a spinner down at the bottom, and you're going to spin to the value that you want, just like you'd expect to see on iOS. Got some buttons down here, again, not hooked up to anything, but already we can just drop them in there because we have buttons that we can call upon that we've created in our app already. So that's the objective for today. Like I said, make sure you got Android running, and let's get started. All right, so I got the app up. I went to log in. I botched it, and we got our nice little material error that we set last time. So that's kind of nice. We'll do a successful login here. We'll go to vendor page, and what I want to do is add that fab here on products, but it'd be better if we had a destination first. So let's go into screens and let's create a screen that we can land on for the products. So we will call it, or I'm going to call it edit_product.dart, and it's going to be dual purpose. So it will actually be the form that you use to add a product, and it will also be the one you use to edit a product. And so I'm going to create a stateful widget here. So I'm going to type STF. I'm going to use the shortcut, and then I'm going to type edit product. And then I'll bring in material. And the reason I'm doing a stateful widget is because I want it to be dual purpose. When I go to edit a product, I'm going to need to preload the text fields and the drop downs with the existing information from a record. And to do that, I'm going to want to use a text editing controller. And when I use a text editing controller, I need to dispose of it. And that's why I know I'm going to want to use a stateful widget for this in advance. All right, so first off, in my build method, I'm going to take out this container that the tooling put in there for me. And I'm going to do my split logic. So before I do that, I'm just going to import Dart.io so I can recognize the platform, and we'll do if platform is iOS. We'll do that, else here. And we will also do the page body here. So we'll do a widget page body, just as we've been doing. And I know this is getting kind of old, so we're going to set up a shortcut here to take care of this logic for us. Now, when we create this page, and really when we create most other pages hereafter, I mean, we did some without a back button and without an app bar. But once we're in the app, when we push a page onto the stack like this one, where it's going to be an add or maintain product form, we're going to want to be able to pop that off. And so we're definitely going to want an app bar. And I'd like to have a sliver app bar so that we have kind of this up scroll consistency throughout our application. And we had to do a little extra code there. So it's probably time here to set ourselves up with a shortcut for creating the sliver scaffold. And so let's do that here. Let's create a widget in the widgets folder, and let's call that sliver_scaffold.dart. And that will be an abstract class. And we'll call it app sliver scaffold. Just kind of keep that prefix going. And so I want to create one for Cupertino and one for material. So let's do Cupertino first. Cupertino, we'll call it Cupertino sliver scaffold. And so we'll want to return a Cupertino page scaffold. We won't check this one until the next video, but we're here. We might as well build it. And we'll do a child. And here's where we want to probably go to our vendor screen. So in screens, in vendor, and just steal from here. So let's just take our nested scroll view, copy it, and we'll just put it here in our child. And I'll need to bring in the Cupertino package. I'll need to bring in the app navbar because we're using that. I don't need the scaffold. So this gives us a nice little frame for our sliver, and then this would be where our sliver goes. And so for our inputs in this, we're going to want to do, let's do some named ones. So let's do curly braces, and let's do a string nav title, and we'll just plug that in here. And then let's do a widget of page body. And we can sub page body in here. And let's see, anything else? Okay, we need a context here. So let's do build context, context. And then let's just put our semicolon there. I'm going to format that. And then, so anytime we just want to create a basic sliver scaffold, we can do that by calling our abstract class and then specifying we want the Cupertino sliver scaffold with the material, and then just put in the nav title and the page body and pass it a context. All right, so that's Cupertino, and then let's do material as well. So that's just a scaffold, which we'll call material sliver scaffold. That's going to take some arguments too, but we'll wait on those. Let's bring in the material package. And let's return a scaffold. Let's give it a body, and then let's visit our vendor and steal from there. So we just want to grab the nested scroll view, copy that, and put it in here for the body for our scaffold, and we'll go ahead and add our semicolon. But in place of the tab bar view, we're going to want to pass it a page body. So let's do curly braces. Let's do a string nav title as well, and let's do a widget page body. And that's also do a build context because we need one down there. Okay, good. So then for the title, let's just sub that out with nav title. For the body, let's get rid of this tab bar view and replace that with page body. And then for the material tab, let's just leave off the tab bar. And that is going to give us an error. So let's go visit the nav bar. And let's see. So we've got bottom, we've got our tab bar. So I'm in widgets, I'm in nav bar, and we've required our tab bar. So let's take that required out. And I happen to know that from experience that if tab bar is null, it just doesn't show. If you try to replace it, you're trying to replace it with a preferred size widget, so you can't just do an empty container. So making that not required means that if we pass it in, like we did in the vendor scaffold, we'll get a bottom tabs like here. And if we don't, then we'll get nothing, which is exactly the behavior that we want. So that will work. So if we go back to sliver scaffold and we just don't pass it anything, we'll be fine. Notice the nav bar. We've got a context here in the Cupertino nav. Let me go back to widgets nav bar. I don't see that we actually need a context for this, so maybe we should just get rid of it. And deal with the errors. So that gives me an error in vendor. So let's get rid of context there. That'll clear up that error. And then in sliver scaffold, let's get rid of that. And next time, if we've broken the Cupertino app bar, which I don't think we will have, we'll have a starting point. All right, good. So let's go back to sliver scaffold. Just make sure that we are all set there. I think we are, so I'm just going to format it, take one last look at it. Okay, looks good. So let's go back to screens, edit product. And now in our platform.isIOS, we can return app sliver scaffold. We can return the Cupertino there. Pass it our arguments. So the nav title we'll just leave blank for now. What do we say? Page body is going to be our page body. And then we need a context, which will be context. All right, and it doesn't like page body, I think, because I don't have anything there yet. Yeah. Let's just... No. Let's see. Page body is a widget, page body. Aha, so I'm in the build method there. Let me get out of there. There, now we're happy. Cool. All right, so then down here we can return app sliver scaffold, material sliver scaffold, and start to give it its arguments, which is nav title. Just do blank for now. Page body. It's page body. And context is our context. We'll just pass that right through. Give it a nice little semicolon at the end there. You do not need an else statement here. I like to kind of wrap it when the code is verbose, so you can kind of quickly figure out, you know, where your material is starting and ending. And even with it short like this, I just feel like that the else statement more accurately conveys, when I look at it, what's happening here. So I'm gonna do this and keep the else, even though it's not necessary. I know with a lot of instances where you need to return, you know, like a spinner or something like that, it just, to me, looks right when you don't do the else. But I think in this case, when you are clearly splitting between two very different options, I just like the way the else plays in there. Personal preference, you can do whatever you want in your app. All right, so if we've done everything right, we should be at least able to push this route onto the stack and get to it, even though it's just going to have a blank container on it. And so let's do that. So let's go to our products widget. So it's in widgets, it's in products, and this is what we see when we click the products tab in our app. So it's here, and it's just a centered text widget. We have a scaffold here, so we're in material, and one of the options that we have, so this is a scaffold that starts below the tab scaffold and is in here. One of the options we have in a scaffold is to add a floating action button, and I'd like to do that. So let's do a floating action button, and let's give it a background color, and let's use our straw color. So we'll bring in app colors and we'll use straw. And let's give it an icon. So we'll use our material icons. We'll use icons. Is that add? Add. And then we'll need an onPress method. And what we want to do is go to that page that we just created. So we'll do the open parentheses. We'll do a fat arrow. We'll do a navigator of context. And we will push named. And we do not have a name yet, so let's call this edit product, and let's visit routes.dart, routes, whatever, in our base, in the root of our app, or the route of our app, and let's just copy vendor, and let's just create a new case that is edit product, and send it to our edit product class. And do the same thing for Cupertino. Okay, so then going back to our products widget, we'll fill in edit product. And I don't want to forget my /. Save that. We get this cute little material button down here that will take us to our product page with our nice blank container. Good, we're on our way. So I'm going to go back into that page. Let's revisit edit product and start to put our fields on the screen. And so for our page body, we're going to want a list view, and we'll give it some children. And let's start with, so I didn't do a title up here, but let's do that actually in the page part. We'll add something that indicates where we are. So I'm going to say add product for now. Eventually this will be dynamic and shift to edit product, or actually the product's name if we're editing. So let's do a style. We'll do text styles, and we created a text styles. Let me bring that in. We created a title, which I think is dark blue. And that's a lot of dark blue right here. So let's do the subtitle instead, which should be, our straw. It's a little smaller, but that's okay. I want to align that. So let's do text align center. Okay, that's good. And then let's do a divider. Okay. And let's do a little work on that. So let's, first of all, I don't really like the color. So let's do color, app colors. We'll do our dark blue. So that's what we got going up here. And then I don't like that it goes all the way to the end, so let's wrap that with padding. And then rather than use this constant, let's bring in our base styles and just use the list styles property that we have, or list padding property that we have set up to use. So there we go. That will make it align with our text fields. And so revisiting my kind of crappy diagram here. I want to do product name. I want to do unit type, unit price, available units. So first of all, let's do a text field for all of them, even though we won't know one is going to be a drop down, and then we'll just sub out the drop down for the text field later. So we'll do an app text field. Not inside the padding. Oops. App text field. Remember, that's the widget that we created. And so we gave ourselves some properties here. And so first of all, we need a Cupertino icon. And I'm actually going to go off the Cupertino / material division here because Font Awesome has such a wide variety of icons that they are more fitting here, so I don't mind working in some Font Awesome icons, and then we can actually use them for both. So for the app or the product name, it's kind of a tough choice there, but I am going to use a shopping basket. Not super descriptive, but you know. And then for the material icon, I'm going to do the same. So we're just going to duplicate the icons, shopping basket. I'm going to open this up here so we got more space to work with. And I'm going to go down here. So then our other fields are, well, let's do our hint text because that's going to help us. In fact, let's do our hint text first in front of Cupertino icon. So when we come back later, the hint text is going to be what tells us what this app field is for in the first place. All right. I need to know if it is iOS, and so let me set a Boolean up here. And then I can actually pass this through. So, well, if I'm here, I already know it is iOS, so I can just say true. And then if it's not, it's down here. I know it's not iOS, so we can just say false. So is iOS is going to be equal to the is iOS we pass in. What else we got for options here? Text input type defaults to text, so I don't need anything there. Eventually we'll need it unchanged. We don't need obscure, so actually that's one's all set. So we're good there. Next one is our hint text will be our product type. So I'm gonna actually, why don't I shrink this up a little bit now, and I'll save that so we can see it on the screen. So there we go. There's our product name. Why don't I just do this? We'll do copy, paste, 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 and product name, product type, or actually, sorry, unit type. Unit price. And we'll do available units. All right, so I'm going to slide this over again. So let's just change our unit type. Let's get a more meaningful icon there. So I'm going to use balance scale. And that's just going to give a scale, and you know, obviously weight is one of the options, so it's always hard to pick an icon that represents what you're trying to do in a text field, but you know, I think that will help convey the meaning. Unit price, rather than come up with some monetary unit that is meaningful to Americans or English folk, Great Britons, whatever you call yourselves, or any other country, I'm just going to do a tag, which is, I think, kind of a universal symbol for a price tag. And then available units, that's a tough one too. Let's just do a hash sign. It gives the impression of hashtag that you're looking for a number, I suppose. If you look through the icons and you find ones that make more sense here, let me know. So there we go there, and then we want to add some buttons, and so that's pretty easy for us. We can add buttons, app buttons. We need to give it a, not that, do that again. App button, takes a button type. Oh, I need to bring it in for starters. It takes a button type, which is our own button type enum. And we'll do straw for the top one, and then we'll do, this will be our image upload, so button text will be add image, and that will need to be dynamic too eventually, because we might want to update the image if it's already there. And so button type is button type dot, let's do dark blue here, button text, save product. So there we go, coming together. All right, so let's build ourselves a widget for a drop-down. So if we go to our widgets folder and we create a new file, and we're going to call it drop-down underscore button dart. All right, and let's make this a stateless widget, and we'll call it app drop-down button. And we need to bring in material. Oh, not that way. Like that. All right, so we'll get rid of container, and what we're wanting to return in here is, well, either a material drop-down or a Cupertino spinner or selector, or picker, I guess it's called. I got it wrong twice. So we're going to want to know if this is iOS or not, and we can do that right inside here. So we'll get rid of this, and we'll do if platform.is. Let me bring in Dart.io, import IO. If it is iOS, we will return a container for now. This is going to be the next episode. We'll fill in that. But for material, we can return a drop-down button of type string. And we're going to need some things in here. So first of all, we're going to need an items. And that's going to be a list of drop-down, let's see, a list of drop-down menu items. And so to get that, let's build ourselves a helper function down here. So material is going to need a list of drop-down menu items, and Cupertino, I believe, is going to need a list of widgets. So they need different things, but we can construct both of them out of a list of strings. And so if we can pass a list of strings to this button, we will create functions down here that figure out, Cupertino, material, whatever, creates what it needs and gives it to it. And we don't have to worry about it once we pass it into this widget. So let's do this. Let's create a constructor. First, we'll create a property with a final list of strings that we'll call items. And then we'll create our constructor. And we'll make that required because they are needed. And so in our class, but outside of our build method, let's create a function to turn a list of strings into our list of drop-down menu items. String, and make sure we get 2 closings there. We'll call that build material items, and it will take in a list of string, which we'll call items. Open up our curly braces, and we'll return items.map. And our map is going to be a string, which we'll call item. And we will send that to a drop-down menu item string. And we'll open up parentheses, and we can specify the properties, and the child is going to be a text widget with our item, and we'll do a text-align center, and then the value is just going to be equal to item. And then when we're all said and done there, we need to cast that to a list. So let me format that. I guess it's all set. Okay. So in our items here, if we're able to pass a list of strings to this build material items function, it will spit out a list of drop-down menu items. And so we can, in items, we can say build material items and pass it the items that we pass into the widget. All right, value is going to be what is selected, and we'll just start with null. It takes in a hint text, so that will be our label. And so we're going to need that, so let's add that as a pass-in for the widget. So a string of hint text. And so our hint text will be a text widget with our hint text. And then to match the style of these, we want to call on our text styles. We'll do style. And we have a suggestion, import text styles. There's a suggestion style that we used in our text that has like the light gray and is a little bit smaller. We can style the body of the actual selected text, and so we want to do that because in here we have text styles.body for our style, so we want to match that to the text field. We really want it to look like it's a text field. There's an underline property, and again, you kind of have to know what you're dealing with here. I played around with it a little bit. Sometimes when you pass null to the underline, it just goes away. Not so here. You need to pass it a blank container, and it gets rid of the underline property. And it's just going to need onChanged. And so we're going to get onChanged value. All right, and let's pass in our hint text, and we probably want to make that required too. All right, so why don't we put that on the screen so we can see what we just built. So if you go back to Edit Products, where we have unit type, let's take that out and let's replace it with app dropdown button. And we'll pass it our hint text, which was unit type. And we will pass it our items, which we'll need to define. So let's just temporarily come up here above into page body. Let's create a list of type string called items, and we'll just set it equal to a new list of string, and it's items.add pound. Let's just do pounds, and then we'll just do a couple here just to give us something to display the drop down and something to work off of. And then we can pass that items into our app dropdown, and we'll need to make sure I get a comma there. And so you can see what we're dealing with. It's right here. Just terrible. So we got some work to do. That doesn't look too bad, but this looks awful. All right, so let's go back to our drop-down button. And I want to change the color of the arrow, and that is icon enabled color. And let's do our straw color there. So let's do app colors dot straw. So we got that going there. Now we clearly have no padding here, so why don't we surround our drop down button with padding, and let's replace the default with base styles list padding. So that will give us the same padding as everything else. So that kind of brings it into line. We need to get this border around here, and there's no border property on this drop down, but that's okay. We can start to simulate that with a container. So let's wrap the drop down button again with a container. We'll save that. I'm going to set the height equal to the button height, because we have basically the buttons and the text fields are all the same height. So we'll do button styles. I'll need to bring that in. Button height. So that'll get the container the height of a button. Let's do a width of the full width. So media query dot of context dot size dot width. And let's do a decoration. So we'll do a box decoration. And let's see, we want to do a border. So we'll do border all. And we can set the color. And of course we want to set that to straw so it matches our text fields. So app colors straw. The width we want to set to our base styles. We've got this border width stored here in base styles, so we can save that. So there we go. It's not round, so let's do a border radius, and we'll call on our base styles, and we have a border radius we can reference right there. I need to do base styles, or I need to do, let's see, border radius circular is what I should have done, and then stuck base styles border radius inside of there. Silly me. Try that again. There we go, getting closer. So we'll want to add in an icon, and we'll want to move this over to the center. So let's do our icon. Let's take care of that up top here, and let's create some variables to pass into the widget to begin with. So we'll do icon data, material icon, and we'll do another final icon of Cupertino icon, and we're going to use the same ones for both this time, but we would want to leave it flexible so we don't have to going forward. And I'm going to make those optional, so you can leave off the icon if you want to use a drop-down button and not have an icon. You can do that in our app. So let's do a row here. So I'm going to wrap this drop-down button one more time with a row. And let's see, the drop-down button will be a child, but let's do a container. And in the container, we'll put the icon. So our icon width, let's just say it's 50 for now. Let's just start with that, and we can adjust from there. And we want to do the same thing we did with our text field here, which is give it some width and some padding and some size and some color. And we did that in our text field widget. Actually, no, our styles text field. We have this icon prefix, which gives it some padding, gives it the color. And we want to use that, but we don't necessarily want to be calling into the text fields. So let's move this to base styles. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to move it into base styles. And so I don't break the text fields, I'm just going to change the icon prefix here to a pointer to base styles icon prefix with the icon. All right, so then if I go back to the drop-down button, I can call that prefix function to kind of format everything and get it the color I want. And I'm going to pass it the material icon. And I'm going to hit save, so I can't see it yet. So I've got my row here, I've got the drop down. Let me wrap the drop down in an expanded widget. And then let me center this drop down button. So I'm going to wrap the drop down button with a center. And, oh, I must not be passing in the... There we go. Let me format that up. And so this all looks good. We don't have an icon, and that's because I'm not actually passing one in yet. So I think we're all set here. If we go back to Edit Products and we revisit our app drop-down button and we look at the fields we now have available, we have a material icon, and I'm going to pass it the font awesome icons dot... that was the scale, right? Balance scale. And then I'm going to do the same thing for Cupertino. Cupertino icon, font awesome icons, balance scale. Hit save. And I'm going to format that. So we've got our text, we've got a divider, we've got our text field, we've now got a drop down here. The only thing I would say is that we probably have a little bit of an alignment issue with our icon. So if we go back to drop down button, I guessed with the container at 50, let's try 40. I'm pretty close, let's try 35. I think that is about right. So just one more quick thing before we wrap up. You'll notice that even though we have a sliver app bar, that this bar is not going away when we scroll up like we might expect to with a sliver app bar. And that is because in navbar, in our material navbar, we have pinned. And back here we have a tab scaffold. That means that we pin just kind of the minimum here, and the rest of it can scroll up. But when we're in this one, the minimum is all we have for the bar, and so by pinning that, we basically just don't have any kind of scroll effect whatsoever. So we'd like to have the option of setting pin to true or false. True when we have a bottom nav bar with tabs, and false when we want it to actually scroll up when we just have a minimum application bar. So we can do that by adding a boolean here for pinned. And what we can do is we can say if pinned equals null, then we'll just let it be true. And otherwise, we will pass the value of pinned. So our existing scaffold with the tab will be unaffected when we do that, hopefully. Yep. But then when we do our sliver scaffold, when we call the material navbar, we can add pinned, and we can set it to false. And so when we use this sliver scaffold, which is minimal for these single one-off pages, we will have pinned equals false. And then when we scroll up, the whole thing disappears. And when you scroll down, you get your arrow back. All right, so this was a long one. We had a lot of work to do. I'm trying to pick up the pace here a little bit so we can advance, but I think we're all set with the scaffolding for material. So in the next video, we'll come back and we'll do the iOS or the Cupertino version. We'll go a little quicker because a lot of these widgets that we've created here we can reuse in the Cupertino app, so that'll be a faster one. So thanks for following along, thanks for sticking with it, and we'll see you next time.